Welcome back to the deep dive. You've brought us some fascinating material today, really digging into something that I know has frustrated a lot of gamers,
Definitely.
maybe even you directly. This strange world of pay to lose.
Yeah, it's a weird one. The articles and the forum discussions you shared, they really shine a light on this totally counterintuitive trend.
It feels almost like a trick, doesn't it?
It really does. You put money into a game thinking, okay, this is going to make things better, enhance my experience.
And then wham!
And then the result is, well, the opposite. So yeah, our deep dive today is all about understanding what pay to lose actually looks like, where we see it in games, and maybe what's driving this kind of design.
Exactly. And to kind of get our heads around this, let's start with a scenario that just sounds completely nuts.
Okay.
Imagine seeing a cool new item in a game, right? Maybe a special ability, some gear, costs real money.
Right. You see that shiny new thing?
You buy it, you're excited, thinking you're going to boost your character,
Yep.
only to find out it actually makes them slower or weaker.
That sounds,
Yeah.
yeah, totally backward.
Paying for the privilege of being worse off.
It does sound nuts, and yet that's basically the core of pay to lose.
Yeah.
It's the complete reverse of, the pay to win model we hear about more often.
Right. Pay to win is straightforward. Spend money, get stronger stuff, get an edge.
Exactly. Better weapons, faster progress, whatever. But pay to lose is the mirror image. Your cash investment actively makes the game harder or puts you at a clear disadvantage.
It's such an intriguing and, like you said, incredibly frustrating aspect of modern gaming.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And one of the examples from the material you sent over that really made me raise an eyebrow was from Mobile Legends.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that one? Because that seemed particularly sneaky.
Well, what's fascinating there is how subtle it can be.
Almost.
Yeah, sneaky is a good word. In Mobile Legends, players can buy cosmetic skins for their characters.
Okay, so just visual changes, making your character look cool.
That's what you'd think, right?
Yeah.
Purely cosmetic. A way to personalize your avatar. But here's the catch. Some of these skins inadvertently increase the size of the character's in-game hitbox.
Wait, hold on. You buy a cool outfit,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you a bigger target, like physically easier to hit in the game.
Precisely. Because the hitbox, the area the game registers for hits, is larger. So enemy shots, melee attacks, whatever, it's just more likely to connect.
Wow.
So a player spends real money to make their character look unique, maybe intimidating.
Yeah.
But in doing so, they've actually created a tangible gameplay disadvantage for themselves.
So it's not just cosmetic, it actually impacts the mechanics.
Right. It highlights this tension you sometimes see in game development.
Yeah.
The push for cosmetic revenue can accidentally, or maybe sometimes not so accidentally, mess with the core gameplay balance.
It's a perfect example of that counterintuitive pay-to-lose thing. You're paying for something that actively makes the game harder to succeed at.
Exactly. So in competitive matches, yeah, players using those specific skins are genuinely at a disadvantage even though they paid for them.
That's almost darkly funny. You're shelling out cash for what you think is just a style choice,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually a tactical blunder. It really makes you wonder how widespread these kinds of mechanics are, maybe in different forms across other games.
Well, if we look beyond that direct disadvantage, like the Mobile Legends hitbox thing,
Yeah.
the general principle of spending money without a guaranteed benefit or getting less than you expected pops up elsewhere too. Think about mobile games and gotcha mechanics.
Right. The digital lottery systems, like in Genshin Impact.
Exactly. Genshin Impact is a prime example from the sources.
Mm-hmm.
Players might spend a pretty significant amount of money, let's say like $100,
Okay.
for an incredibly low chance, maybe something like 0.6%, of getting that highly desirable top-tier character they really want.
0.6% for $100. That's wow.
It is. The odds are, well, they're intentionally very low. It's calibrated to maximize revenue, even if it means players often feel like they didn't get their money's worth. It kind of reflects that broader industry thing of whale hunting, focusing on getting big spending from a small group.
So that's a shockingly low probability for a decent chunk of change.
It is. And what's maybe more relevant to this idea of pay to lose, or maybe pay and don't really win, is what you often get instead.
Right, because you don't usually get nothing.
No, you get something. But players might end up with, say, multiple duplicates of less desirable items, like several identical swords for that same $100.
Swords they maybe don't even need or want.
Exactly. Now, maybe those duplicates offer some tiny benefit, like a small upgrade somewhere.
Okay.
But it definitely doesn't feel like the value they were hoping for when they spent the money, right? They didn't get the character they wanted. So, in essence, they've spent cash and haven't received the desired outcome. That itself can feel like a loss.
So in that case, you're not directly made worse off, like with the hip docs.
Right.
But your money hasn't bought you what you actually wanted, and you're left with stuff that feels, well, underwhelming, like a different flavor of losing on your investment.
That's a really good way to put it. It's a disconnect between the financial input and the actual value or desired outcome. I remember reading one of those forum posts you shared
Yeah.
where someone spent quite a bit trying to get one specific character and just ended up with like an inventory full of duplicate swords they said they'd never use.
That sounds incredibly frustrating, almost like the game is mocking you.
It can definitely feel that way. That sense of disproportionate return absolutely contributes to player frustration and that feeling of having, lost their money.
It feels like a gamble where the house always wins, but you're not even guaranteed a consolation prize you actually want.
Pretty much.
Now, you also mentioned AAA titles, the big blockbuster games. Where do we see these kinds of mechanics cropping up there? Is it different?
It often takes the form of loot box systems.
Oh.
Overwatch was a prime example highlighted in the materials.
Ah, loot boxes. I remember those. You buy a box or earn one and it pops open with random stuff.
Exactly. You can often buy them with real money.
Yeah.
And players do, hoping to get those rare cosmetic items like, legendary character skins.
Okay, makes sense. People want the cool stuff.
Right. But the catch here, and where that sort of pay-to-lose feeling can creep in, is that you might spend a considerable amount on these boxes and just repeatedly get items for characters you never play or very rarely play.
Ah, okay. So you've spent the money, but you haven't got anything that actually enhances your personal game experience with the characters you like.
Precisely. It's like buying a mystery grab bag hoping for, I don't know, a specific action figure.
Yeah.
But you keep getting, like, dull clothes you have no interest in. And in this case, you're paying real money for each grab bag attempt.
So you might end up with a really cool rare skin, but for a hero you just don't enjoy using.
Exactly. So it's a cosmetic reward, technically, but it provides zero actual benefit or enjoyment for that particular player's way of playing. The money spent hasn't translated into anything meaningful for them.
Leading to that same sense of wasted investment.
Which, raises the big question.
Yeah.
Why? Why are these mechanics so common? What's the thinking behind designing things this way?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe billion-dollar question for the industry. Why would developers include things that can actively hinder players or just feel like a ripoff sometimes?
Well, this gets into the underlying psychological tactics that are often at play. Game developers, or maybe more accurately, the monetization designers, often use very clever strategies to encourage spending, even on items that might not be beneficial.
Okay, like what?
One of the biggest ones is tapping into the fear of missing out. FOMO.
Ah, FOMO. Yeah, we've all felt that. How does that work in games?
Think about limited time virtual items, exclusive skins, special bundles, maybe holiday-themed stuff, only available for a short window, like in Fortnite, right?
Right, get it before it's gone forever.
Exactly. That limited availability creates this sense of urgency. Players worry, oh man, if I don't buy this now, I'll miss out. Everyone else will have it and I won't.
That feeling of being left out.
Yeah. And that fear can drive impulsive purchases. You buy it quickly without maybe thinking too hard if you actually need it or if it improves your gameplay. You just don't want to miss the chance. Even I feel that sometimes. I see a cool limited edition hat or something in a game, and part of my brain goes, ooh, even though I know better.
That makes total sense. It's like those flash sales in real life, but maybe even more potent because of the social aspect of gaming, seeing other players with the cool, rare stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's another really powerful psychological tool, the sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost.
Oh.
Okay, how does that apply here?
So the sunk cost fallacy is this idea that once you've already invested time or effort or especially money into something, you feel kind of compelled to keep going, to keep investing, even if it doesn't really make rational sense anymore.
Okay, so in gaming terms, how does that play out?
All right, imagine a player. They've already dropped, say, $50 on loot boxes or gotcha pulls in a game.
Okay.
And maybe they haven't gotten anything they really wanted yet. They feel a bit disappointed.
Right.
But because they've already spent that $50, they might feel like, ugh, I can't stop now. If I just spend a little more, maybe I'll finally get that rare character or skin, and then the first $50 won't feel wasted.
Ah, I see. trying to justify the initial spending by spending more.
Exactly. They've sunk that cost. So they keep throwing good money after bad, chasing that win or trying to make the initial investment feel worthwhile, even if the odds are still terrible, or if more spending doesn't actually make the game more fun.
It becomes this cycle driven by past spending, not future value.
Precisely. It's kind of like, staying to watch the end of a really bad movie just because you already paid for the ticket.
Yeah, yeah. It's not logical, but that feeling of not wanting the initial investment to be a total loss is surprisingly strong.
It really is. And these psychological tactics, FOMO, sunk cost, they can have some pretty significant real-world consequences for players.
Right, because we're talking real money here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The pull of these mechanics, combined with the chance of pay-to-lose outcomes or just getting very little value, can lead to some serious financial risks. You mentioned a concerning anecdote earlier from the sources.
Yeah, the FIFA one.
Yes, some of the material highlighted these extreme cases, like a player who reportedly spent, what was it, an astonishing $15,000 on FIFA Ultimate Team.
$15,000.
Yeah,
That's huge.
it's massive. And the key point here is that this huge financial investment offered absolutely no guarantee of improved performance in the game or even getting the specific top-tier players they wanted.
So you could spend that much and still have a mediocre team.
Theoretically, yes, or at
Okay.
least not the super team you might expect for that kind of money. It's a really stark illustration of how much cash can potentially go down the drain with no tangible benefit to the player's success or maybe even their enjoyment.
That really puts the potential financial impact into sharp perspective. It's not just a few bucks here and there for some people.
Not at all. And it gets particularly concerning when we think about younger players,
Right.
kids, teenagers.
Yeah.
They might not have the same financial literacy, maybe less impulse control than adults. That potentially makes them more susceptible to these pressures, to FOMO, to the sunk cost fallacy.
That's a really important point. It's one thing for an adult with disposable income to make these choices, maybe understanding the risks,
Mm-hmm.
but it's quite another for kids who might be spending allowance money or maybe even their parents' money without fully grasping the odds or the potential for disappointment.
Exactly. However,
Mm.
and this is the tricky part, from the industry's perspective,
Hmm.
these strategies are incredibly successful, financially speaking.
Yeah, I bet.
The revenue generated through microtransactions, including the ones that feel like pay to lose or just offer low value, it's enormous.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars.
Right. The shift to free-to-play models kind of pushed this, didn't it?
It certainly played a huge role. If the game itself is free, they need to make money somehow, right? Microtransactions became a primary way. And this financial success, well, it's a big reason why we might not see major shifts away from these practices anytime soon, even if players find them frustrating.
So, while it might be annoying or even harmful for some players, these mechanics are a major profit engine for the companies. That definitely creates a tricky situation.
It does. It really does. But that doesn't mean players are just, helpless victims.
Okay, good.
There are definitely strategies that informed players like our listeners can adopt to navigate this landscape and resist these potentially manipulative practices.
It's good to hear. So, what kind of actionable advice can we offer? What can you, the listener, actually do?
Well, one of the most basic fundamental steps is simply to set a budget for any in-game spending and stick to it.
Know your limit.
Exactly. Decide beforehand how much you're comfortable spending per month or per game, whatever works. This creates clear boundaries. It helps prevent those impulse buys driven by FOMO or that feeling of needing to chase losses because of sunk costs.
That makes sense. Just having a line in the sand.
And for parents,
Mm.
definitely make use of parental controls. Most gaming platforms, consoles, mobile devices, they have settings to limit or block spending. That's crucial for managing kids' access.
Very practical first steps. Know your limit. Use the tools available. What else? How can players be more sort of mentally prepared?
Encourage critical thinking. Before you click buy on that shiny new item or loot box bundle, just pause. Take a moment.
Breathe.
Yeah, breathe. And ask yourself honestly, is this genuinely going to make the game more fun for me? Will it really enhance my experience in a meaningful way?
Or am I just feeling pressured?
Exactly. Or am I feeling that FOMO or that sunk cost pull? Just stepping back for a second and objectively evaluating why you want to buy can make a huge difference in avoiding purchases you later regret.
That's great advice. Question the motivation. Is it genuine enjoyment or is it some kind of external or internal pressure?
Precisely. And, it's also worth remembering that there are tons of fantastic games out there that don't rely on these kinds of microtransactions at all.
Right, like the example you gave earlier.
Yeah, games like Stardew Valley, for instance.
Yeah.
You buy the game once, and that's it. The focus is purely on gameplay satisfaction, on providing a rich experience without constantly dangling paid extras in front of you.
Exploring those kinds of games can be a really refreshing change, can't it?
Totally. It's a good reminder that engaging, fun games don't need these complex, sometimes exploitative monetization schemes to be great.
That's a really good point, that alternatives exist and they can be just as, if not more, rewarding. And sometimes, maybe the most powerful strategy is the simplest one.
Absolutely. Look, if a game consistently makes you feel manipulated,
Mm-hmm.
or if you find yourself spending more money than you're comfortable with, especially on stuff that doesn't bring you real value, or like we discussed, even makes the game harder,
Yeah.
it is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably advisable to just disengage. Stop playing that game.
Just walk away.
Yeah, protect your wallet, protect your well-being, protect your enjoyment.
What?
Your time and money are valuable. Spend them on games that respect that.
So ultimately, the power still lies with the player, with you, the listener, to make informed decisions, to vote with your wallet and your playtime.
Exactly right. Be aware, be critical, and choose what works best for you.
Well, this has been a really, really insightful deep dive into this whole pay-to-lose phenomenon and the broader tactics around game monetization. It's certainly giving me a lot to think about next time I see one of those tempting special offers pop up.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway here is just awareness. While
Mhm.
spending money in games isn't inherently bad, it's part of the hobby for many people.
Right.
It's just crucial to be aware that, yes, some games are designed, intentionally or not, to encourage spending on things that might not help you or could even hurt your experience.
Understanding the mechanics, the psychology.
Exactly. Understanding that empowers you to make better choices, protect your finances, and ultimately make sure you're actually having fun.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, maybe here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. As these kinds of monetization practices, whether it's pay to lose, aggressive gotcha, or misleading loot boxes, become more common, what does that say about the evolving relationship between game developers and us, the players who support them? Is this sustainable? Is it ethical? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.